Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, President and Academic Writing Coach at Defend, Publish, and Lead. And welcome to episode 291, Map Your Pre-Writing Session Trail. Today, we are going on a journey. This is a journey that I walk through with many of our clients for coaching, and I think it'll be really helpful for some of you that think that it's just taking too long to get to the writing. So, for example, I hear from clients all the time that they will schedule 2 hours of writing and then they'll say, it takes me 45 minutes to start actually writing. They need some like ramp up time. Some of that time is thinking and debating and actually doing some legitimate pre work that you have to do with your brain before you ever get to writing. But sometimes there are just other things that are going on that we don't need as part of that kind of ramping in period. And so I asked, with permission, I asked one of our clients to kind of walk through a journey that happened with right before a writing session. So this was their pre-writing session trail. And I know on this podcast, if we back up for a second, we've talked a lot about opening a writing session, getting ready to do a writing session, closing a writing session. And as a quick recap, opening a writing session is the moves that you might make to directly get yourself to write. So those were some recommended moves. I will link to that opening a writing session episode. It's actually a really popular one for us if you want to check out what some of those suggested moves are. But what this episode is about is what's actually happening. So even though we've got some recommended strategies to get you started, we all know that on a day where it feels like it took a long time to get to writing, sometimes other things are going on. So I'm going to show a visual aid today. So if you're audio only, not to worry, you can check out this episode on YouTube if you want to see it. But for many of us, this is going to sound really familiar. So what's on screen right now are some notes that I took from a client where I made them describe play by play what happened when they sat down to write. So, for example, they had a time where they had writing scheduled. So this is something that was already on the schedule. It was planned. It was something that they wanted to do, and so they were like, "I'm writing today." So I said, okay, what happened from there? You got to your writing time. What happened? So this is the play by play. And what visually it looks like, if you don't want to go to YouTube, you just want to know, like, get a picture. It's on a white piece of paper. It's basically little blurbs of different steps to get to writing. So kind of like in a row with little arrows. So I did this thing, arrow, did this next thing, arrow, did this next thing, and so on. So here are what some of the steps are. I won't describe all of them, but what happened at the beginning is the person said, okay, well, I got my laptop and then I went to go sit down to write because it's my writing time. That's what I did. They were working from home. And then I said, okay, what happened next? So that was the first step. Then there's like an arrow in the visual aid that says, what's the next thing? And they said, well, I looked for my document that I was working on. And I said, okay. So they got the document open. And then the next thing that happened was that they discovered they had low power on their laptop. So there's like a little frowny face, and they had to go find their power cord. Happens to me all the time. This is if you're already kind of cackling listening to this episode, yep, this happens to many of us, right? So far, if you're keeping track, they got the laptop, they opened it up. Step one, step two, they looked for their document, they found it, opened it. Step three, they got the little low power thing. So then they had to get up and go get the cord, right? So then what happened, the fourth thing in our pre-writing session journey here is that they were looking out the window when they went to go grab the cord and they saw the mail truck outside. So they just walked outside to go get the mail, and she said, well, while I was up, she went to go do it, right? So that's a fourth step. It's not really about writing, but it's another thing that's kind of taking away from the writing next. And then I said, okay, well, did you get back to work? And she said, yes. I opened up my notes document to find what I was supposed to do, but then I couldn't find it. So that's another step, right? Then I said, okay, well, what'd you do? And then she said, oh, I realized it was in my email. So I went to go find the notes from my co-author, and that's where I got it. And of course, as always with email, she responded to 3 more emails she just wanted to get rid of them. She's like, oh, I'm already here. I could dash off a response. And to be fair, I did have her ask me or respond to me in my question of like, how long were you kind of hopped out on email? And she said it was definitely under 10 minutes because all 3 things were just a quick yes or no. Okay. So then she went back to the email that had all the notes in it, and she started working on the first thing that was on her list of tasks to do in a writing session. So she had like three or four issues she wanted to address. She was at work on issue number one. And then, as always happens, she works on issue number one, but realizes, oh, two of my sources really need to be updated. I don't have anything newer than 2022, but I really should have something from 2026. That was not what she was doing today. She was not looking for literature review type stuff. But she realized she could do it quickly, so then she went and updated these two sources, and then again jumped back to issue number one, which was the issue she was addressing in her manuscript. But then, like all of us, she needed some coffee. So this was me. I laughed because I was like, I'm surprised coffee didn't get in here before this. Because if you're keeping up, we are now at like 8 steps from when she sat down with her laptop, right? So she got her coffee, but oh, while she was up, she also threw in a load of laundry because she was working from home. And if you heard that buzzer go off in this episode, yes, that was my laundry going off. And I'm going to kill whoever turned on the buzzer at my house because I always say, please don't turn that on. I'm about to podcast. Please don't do that. And then she went back to her issue number one, and then actually started writing and got in a flow and got some writing done. All right. So that's that's not bad. So this is the first thing about this episode. I'm not using this episode as a way to like shame her. She told me I could use it. But I think it's really accurate with what's happening, especially with a lot of us writing at home in the summertime. We have the best intentions. We keep going back to the writing. But little things like email or not having your laptop charged or needing coffee, much as I love coffee, or even things like being in the manuscript and then realizing like, oh, well, I have this other thing that could use attention. And then you kind of decide, oh, well, I'm not doing issue one, which was the first thing on my list. I'm going to work on this other thing. All of those things contribute to that feeling that it's taking you a long time to ramp up into your writing because it is. Like that is telling you that. So I have some clients that they only have an hour a day to write, and they will actually spend 45 to 50 minutes in the journey trying to get to writing. And then they get just a little bit of writing and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm out of time. Well, this is one of the things that just happens. And it just happens. Like this is somebody that was dedicated, pretty focused, kept going back to the writing with one little like kind of duck out to update some sources, kept returning to the task on their list and to the writing. So here's some things that I would recommend. I made an updated picture because I actually did this with her so she could kind of see what I was seeing. So I just said, let's look at that whole journey step by step for a second and just cross out things that have nothing to do with writing. So one of the things was having a low power on a computer and going to find the cord. This happens to me all the time. So for all of you that are good planners and you plug in your laptops every night to get them nice and charged, great. Something I need to be better at as well. But again, this could be avoided if you're kind of before you ever get to writing, even just checking things like, is my laptop charged? Let me plug it in right now so I'm ready to roll. So that's kind of a planning thing. But then there's other things like seeing the mail truck, running out to get the mail, responding to emails, and so on. One thing that we've talked about in past episodes is just thinking about email that if it's writing time, it's not email time. And it's true in this case, she had to go in her email to go find the notes from her co-author. They were there, she did use them. That was a legit thing to do. But again, this is a spot where kind of planning to make a writing session happen effectively can be really helpful. So two things she could have done, she could have made sure her laptop was charged before she got to her writing session, and she could have already pulled up that email with the notes. And better yet, even gotten it out of her email so she wasn't tempted to go respond to some things, right? So those are two things that could have happened in there. Then when she got to the spot where she discovered, oh, I need to update those sources. A better way to handle that would have just been to add that little note like, hey, on page 7, I really need to update those two sources from 2021 to 2026 with something newer, and just added that into a closing note for a writing session. So meaning, like if you're writing a really good closing note, which we'll be doing in our episode next week, you're leaving a note to yourself that's really going to work for you that tells you what you need to do. So she could have just stayed with the issue she was working on that she had planned to do during the writing session and then just chalk that up on a note. Because the good thing about that is that's an easy task. That's great. So tomorrow's writing session, she could have then opened up the closing note and said, oh, my first thing is updating those sources. I can do that. That's nice and easy, right? And so what I did for her when I did this visually is I highlighted only the things that were relevant to the writing. And really, she had to, of course, get the laptop, open up her document, open up the notes. All that stuff is kind of getting her ready to actually start writing. But where the writing happens was really in, the last, let's say, 8 steps to the end, right? So one of it was when she returned to that email that had the notes after getting kind of waylaid by answering some emails. She started to work on issue number one, meaning she started writing. Okay, so that's some writing. So she could give that like a nice yellow highlight. She did it. She also worked on it again for a while until she realized she needed those sources. So those are both good, definitely steps getting herself ready to write. She returns to issue one after she's through in the laundry, and then she has a little note saying, I actually wrote for 30 minutes. So she had an hour and like 10 minutes scheduled for writing. And she has this little, when I listened to her, I said, okay, when did the writing just start and keep going? She said she estimated she had around 30 minutes, which means she spent about 40 minutes ramping up to get into this writing. So doing all the kind of pre-writing session work to get going. So one thing that you can do, if this is you and it seems like it takes a long time for you to get started, one of the things that you can do is to map out that pre-writing session journey. So the next time you're writing, have a big piece of paper. Like it's great to have like a big piece, not a post-it. And every single step until the writing starts flowing, write it down. So like got laptop, opened up lid, opened up Zotero, opened up my document and looked for the comment I left on page 6. Whatever it is that you have, try to separate them out and just draw a little arrow in between them. And what you can do then is at the end, look at all those things. Anything that was kind of like low, like the low power cord or getting coffee or whatever. Coffee you might leave as like a neutral step. I did on the map that you're looking at if you're watching on YouTube. But kind of crossing out things that really have nothing to do with writing and they just took time. And then anything that's actually writing, like writing was really actually happening in those steps or was leading to writing, using like a nice highlighter, like a fun color. I just used yellow because that's all I had. But having that really shows you that it takes a little while to ramp in to get you to the writing journey. But what you want to get to is kind of understand that does it take me like 7 steps to get actually going? Does it take 10? It's a really good exercise to understand why maybe it takes you a long time. And I also want to say for the record, I say this to clients, I've said it to 2 clients in the past week, that sometimes it does take a long time to start writing. Sometimes some people really need 40 minutes before they ease into writing. Maybe they have 2 hours blocked. That means they have an hour and 20 minutes. That's what they actually are producing and writing. So one of the troubles, I think, and this is why I argue a lot of times, a lot of my work is that writing project management and all this writing strategy, like understanding how to build a productive writing strategy, all of this information means that writing sessions, writing project management, all of these things are all part of the same writing process. And understanding your own process can be really, really helpful in just figuring out what it takes. Because if the truth is you need 40 minutes to really get kind of warmed up, ready to write, writing is flowing, then that might mean that your sessions have to be a little bit longer, or it might mean you want to make sure every writing session has 40 minutes of ramp up time and 40 minutes of writing time, or you could just try to shorten that 40 minutes on the front end. So like in this case with the client, we just did some estimate, like doing a little bit of estimating about, okay, if it took you 40 minutes to do all this stuff, what if we took out the mail truck, the power cord, looking for those extra sources and all that? And she estimated that probably would take her just 15 minutes to get started. So I encourage you to map your writing journey just to see, like for your pre-writing session, take a piece of paper. You could do it a couple different times and see if you can kind of streamline some of those steps. One of the things we're doing to kind of motivate people to do this as we get that we're starting now, this is our first episode in August, but we are doing our fall accountability group. We had a great fun with our summer accountability group. And If you want to join the group for free, get all of the sessions. So there's 15 weekly sessions, all the resources. There's this really cool fall accountability tracker. You can actually get the whole thing for free to join our group if you map your pre-writing session journey and you email it to me and you're allowing me to put it on LinkedIn. One of the things that we're going to do as part of this episode is that for people that want to share writing journeys with me, I'm just going to post them up on LinkedIn and anybody can comment on them if they have ways to help streamline and we can help each other. So you could draw it out. If you're somebody really digital, you can do it, digitally. I would just say don't use your whole writing time to map out your pre-writing session. So that's not the point. It doesn't have to be gorgeous and artistic. Mine was really messy when I wrote it out. I just neatened it up a little bit for this episode. But you're welcome to join our fall group for free if you want to just, write out what happened before you got to a pre-writing session. And also, as part of our fall accountability group, one of the things to know about that, if you're interested in joining, we will start August 24th. This episode is being released in 2026. And as part of that, you get a fall tracker. We meet once a week. All sessions are recorded. So if you can't meet, you will always get the recording and all of the resources. And happy writing this week.